Well, thank you, Dr. John, for joining us. Some of us will eventually join, and I would like to officially welcome you through using my PowerPoint. I have everything set up that way. So, well, we always start with Paksu. Let me introduce our speaker. You guys already saw the video of it, so I don't need to go further, but he teaches now at X, and he's a rock star professor, pastor. And his
I don't
first
know
book.
where you collected all these pictures that
Hey,
I don't even have.
yeah, man, I'm very good at researching this.
I know.
This is his
You're
first
such a
book.
great researcher. Yeah.
And he preaches everywhere. And if you just put his name and go video section, if you speak Korean, a lot of videos are already collected and posted, which is great. And I taught on that, the exchange, leadership exchange. So this is something that we're going to listen from. So round of applause one more time for Professor John. 박수.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
The first question he's here saying, ask is, what I'm interesting is the leader is one who influences people to make them act. When you serve people with leadership, people will follow them with joy. You know, talking about your book about serving people instead of using people. But if you try to rule with law, you're afraid and reluctantly obey. This is my question. What is a real leadership? How is leadership different between government, company, and church? Go ahead and respond.
Very, very good question. But at the same time, before I define anything about leadership, I want to question you back
Mm,
what you think the leadership is.
mm. Oh, you got okay. Okay, let me go to the
Who asked the question, Sang?
Sang.
Sang, is he
Sang
here?
asked the question.
All
What
right.
is leadership to
Let
you?
me hear what you think the leadership is. If I
Leadership.
elaborate the question, what's the difference between you probably have heard the concept of mentoring or mentorship. And somehow I consider Dr. O as my mentor for English speaking ministry. I mean, he was I don't know whether you heard about his story, but he was the legend of the church planter among the 1.5 and second gen English speaking Korean Americans in the States. He was the first generation and pioneer of English speaking ministry in the States. And he planted many churches and very successful. I mean, by numeric success and everything. So I consider him as my mentor, although I didn't get to spend too much personal time with him. But from time to time, whenever he met me, he coached me and mentored me. So in that term, let me ask you back. Then, what's the difference between mentoring and leadership? Can you see the difference
Mentoring.
between the terms? I mean, let me hear what you think first, then I will explain what I think they are. Any,
Mentoring,
sir?
mentoring and leadership.
Mhm.
I think a different is mentoring and leadership. Mentoring as someone if we need to sub idea, we can ask him. And leadership uh, always lead the uh, organize, bring someone go to follow them.
Good.
Yes.
Anyone else who can jump in and to give your opinion or your own definition about leadership or the mentor or mentorship?
Tola,
Prof, I think mentor is just like a teacher, and he provides a good advices, and he counsel. He he talk with counsel to someone, and what about a leader? For my idea, he is a he leads the group or the organization or the church, and he is the one that the first that the follower need to see and then follow what he did.
Mhm.
This is what I think.
Okay, then when I said Dr. O was my mentor, can I also say that he's my leader? What do you think? He was my mentor and he is still my mentor because he's still mentoring me from time to time. But is he a leader to me? What do you think?
I think
I think
mentor.
okay.
Sam
Okay,
first.
I think mentor, professor, not a leader. Mentors. Tola, please.
You're getting into it little by little. So yeah, speak it out. Say it a little.
I think if Professor O is your mentor, he's only he cannot be your leader because you can get some good ideas from him, but he doesn't lead you to do something. But I think a leader can be both leaders and mentor because he leads and he gives some advices to the followers.
So it sounds like mentorship is more personal while the leadership is more official.
Yep.
Can we put it that way? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I agree with you too. I mean, it's not that he cannot be my leader, but he's not a leader to me right now because we are not in the same organization or same system. So he influenced me in that term. He's a leader to me somehow because leadership is all about influence. But and yet, officially, he's not my leader at this point because I don't get his request or command, or I get his influence, but it is not official authority to change my attitude or my behavior. So it doesn't what do you say? It doesn't change the results of what I am going to do.
Yes.
So that could be the sort of huge, I mean, different people will come up with different definitions about leadership and mentorship. But in this particular setting, let's define that way. That's the mentorship is more personal level, while leadership can be more official and somehow it's hierarchical. Mentorship could be pretty horizontal. You know, it doesn't have to be he's my boss. Even who's junior to me can be my mentor because I can learn from him. But at the same time, leadership, when we define the leadership as influence, then I can be influenced by my baby too, because she or he may change all my environments, influenced parents, action 3 changes everything. One baby is born to the family, we gotta change all the kitchen utensils. That's the influence. Then can we call that baby our leader? No. So that's the, I mean, she or he may influence in that term has some leadership portion, but that doesn't make that baby my leader. So that's the tricky part. But as my baby grew up, she influenced me a lot, and she gives me very interesting insights too. For example, one time when she was 6 or 7 years old, she said she was hungry. So I told her that because you have not eaten anything, so you're empty. That's why you have a stomach ache. She ate and it got better. A long time later, I was having a headache and I told her that I have a headache. And she said, because your brain is, that's why you have a headache. So you gotta eat something. So how can I eat and read something then? And I learned a lot. It was shocking. I mean, she was only 6 and she was giving me the huge insight. Okay, one of the reasons that I have a headache is my brain is empty. So I have to fill my brain with the knowledge. So I read something. So in that term, she sometimes she acts as my mentor. So mentorship is not hierarchical, doesn't have to be, but leadership is somewhat hierarchical. There's a high level and lower level, and that's why I call the leadership is more official than the mentorship. Okay, in that term, what is the leadership? Leadership is influence. At the same time, it moves and motivates the people to work for a certain goal. So in order to be a leader, you have to set a goal for the followers. But here comes another dilemma or another the difficulty to define the Christian church leadership. The secular leader set a goal for himself or for the system, for the profit, for the benefit of the organization. But the Christian leadership does not set a personal goal. We have a common goal, which is the kingdom of God and glorification of God. So we have to motivate the people to reach the same goal, which is the kingdom benefit or kingdom glorification. But sometimes even, we will probably talk about it later on, even the Christian leaders use the followers so that they may be important. They want to be recognized, and they maybe want to even glorified and magnified by using the human resources of the followers. So can secular leadership be practiced in the church setting? Yes. That's what Dr. O called evil leadership. It's one of the reasons that why he said he didn't like leadership, because very secular. You're fired. The reason he fired the people because they didn't meet his requirement, expectation. He had his own agenda as a leader. He could be a good secular leader, but he's not a good servant leader. Leader is to serve the people, not to motivate or govern the people or manipulate the people. We serve the people so that they can serve the kingdom. So that's what the Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 to 13 said. Our job as a teacher and pastor, as a leader, to equip and serve the people so that they can serve the kingdom, the body of Christ, the church. The problem is we often forget that because the leadership is very secularized, polluted by the secular leadership concept. People like John Maxwell adopting the secular leadership and without filtering it, without baptize those secular concept, used it directly and applied to the church setting. That's why most of their attempt failed. And that's why the church became secularized as today. So this is very important warning when Dr. O said, please do not listen to the secular teaching of the Western or the missionary people. Sometimes they bring in some polluted principles to you, but because you're very innocent, you're not criticize them before you take them. This is what I always tell my students in my school. We have 64 international students like you from Southeast Asia, like some students from China, some from Vietnam, Thailand, and these days we have some students from Africa. We have 2 Kenya students in Ethiopia, Nigeria, and they all want to learn the church growth movement of Korea. I tell them, no, heck no. Do not learn those evil things from Korean pastors. They may look outside, they may look successful, but may be denied on the judgment day. You know, the Matthew chapter 7 said, many people will come to the Lord and then I did this in your name. I cast the demons out in your name. And Jesus said, you know what I would say on that day? I never knew you, you evildoer. Many pastors can do evil doing with using of Jesus Christ. That's the false leadership. So going back to the redefinition of the leadership between the secular leadership and the church leadership, ask 2 questions that Dr. O mentioned in the lecture. But I slightly want to change the question, that is what I am doing glorifying the Lord or glorifying me? What is my ministry? And ask yourself, why am I doing what I am doing right now? Why am I doing this, what I am doing now? Then everything's clear. Many leaders tend to give answers before ask the questions. Are not the ones who give answers. Great leaders ask the questions and make and allow the followers ask the questions. If a leader does not allow any question and consider the question as the challenge to the authority, then he's a false leader or the bad leader. Good leader is open to questions all the time. And good leader asks the questions themselves. I hope that answers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. John. That clarifies the role difference from the fundamental motivational level from the government company leader from Christian leader. Now, some of the issue that they're raising actually stems out of your principal teaching of the connecting transition. So what do you do? What do you do when leaders do not want to transition out? And is there, in your research, did you find that Korean leaders tend to be more holding on to their position than the other ethnic group? Or how would you respond? Because all these Cambodian pastors work under Korean missionaries. Now, someday, this Korean missionary have to let go. so that they could be the senior pastor, they could be the head of the church, but it hasn't happened yet. So what is your suggestion?
Before I try to answer to the question, I have to clarify the difference between the missional context or context in the missions field and the local. Honestly, the missionaries who planted a church in the missions field, they don't have a retirement age, actually, right? Nobody defines, okay, you have to retire by the age of 70 or 65. In the cases that I did in the United States, in North America, 2 churches in Canada and other 5 churches in California and other areas, it's not an option. It is must. They have to retire. Even after they retire, they want to remain influential to the organization they established or they took over rule. I mean, they became the second the second leader who planted a church, and then 10 years later the planter retired and then became the second leader, and he grew the church. That's another problem. This guy would consider that organization, because I came as a small church, but I grew this church to a mega church. So this is my merit or my achievement, not the founder's achievement. So the what do you call it? The ownership is stronger to the second pastor than the founding pastor. If the second pastor did not do any achievement, any significant achievement, but remain or maintain the status quo, then just retired without any reservation. Pretty interesting. It is not that they're gentle, kind people, but they have no power, to be honest. But when they have a power, so difficult to leave it behind. It's not the character issue. It's not the personality issue. Every human being is a sinner. Remember that. Sometimes, you know, we as a next generation pastor, I mean, I was considered as a next generation, but now I am 52, so I'm the first generation. But when we were complaining, the big brother, Dr. O's generation, hey, when are they going to retire? When are they going to in that position? And I would do differently if I were in his position. And I was worshiping, admired Dr. O. At the same time, I was always saying that I would do differently if I were in his position. But I am in that position. And I ask myself, honestly, am I doing differently from what Dr. O was doing back then? Before you think about their retirement, removing them from that position and you replace them with yourself, you have to be very honest with yourself first, that will I be different? No. Sometimes you may be even worse than that guy, because we are sinners and we've learned that. We experienced that. In Korean old saying, those who experienced under bad mother-in-law becomes an even worse mother-in-law in the future. I don't know whether I tried it right. Dr. O, you know what I meant, right? So that's what we have to ask first. And then when they decided to, I mean, many missionaries will say that by the time everything becomes established, then of course I will retire and then I will hand it down to you. And do they really mean it? Yes, I think they do mean it. But as time goes by and situation changes, their mind changes as well. So in order not to change their first mind, first heart, we have to develop that loving relationship. It's all about relationship. It's all about relationship, really. That's it. And Dr. O mentioned it as a exchange leadership, but I would translate it a little differently. Transitional leadership. Change is one completely goes out and different leader replaces, but transition, there's an overlapping period. And when we say the church as a body of Christ, it is really organic body. So I think the leadership change or leadership transition is just like a transplant of organs, of our body organs. When you have a kidney problem, you have to transplant someone else's kidney, right? But you cannot anybody's kidney. Just he or she has two kidneys. I have only one kidney, so only one kidney failed, so I need one kidney. But your wife was willing to give one kidney out of two. That's a good will, but that doesn't work that way. You have to have a same blood type, and everything should match exactly. Otherwise, there's a malfunction. Even your body, other functions may even get worse than ever before. That's what's happening when the leadership transition took place wrong. Wrong time, wrong place, wrong people. So expecting your leader to hand down that authority or leadership to you is very natural. That's healthy, that's good. It's way better than scouting someone successful from outside of the organization. That's one of the reasons that why Korean churches fail. That guy is successful there in that organization, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he will be successful in my organization. Because sometimes that successful leadership function well in that organization, but very bad in organization because it doesn't match. But leadership transition must have a certain period of transition, overlapping period. But they don't. And whenever we talk about this kind of leadership, hand down, giving out the leadership, bless you. Number one story that we take out of the Bible is the Moses and Joshua relationship. But remember, Joshua was not out of outsider. He was insider, and he spent at least 40 official years with the Moses. Joshua was the secretary to Moses. And number two thing that we have to remember that I was always kind of challenging to my mentor, Dr. O knows my mentor too, 강준민 목사님. Pastor Kang's English name was Joshua, so he always said that I consider the founding pastor as a Moses. But I jokingly told him that, you know what? Joshua took over the leadership when after Moses, but your Moses is still alive, and then you took over his position. That's wrong. Okay, the both leaders transition leadership. You have to spend time together, certain time together. So ingrown leader is most ideal, I think. But sometimes ingrown leader does not take any official leadership training. That's another problem. Although you're ingrown, you must have official training on leadership. So that's why sometimes if you pick if you are picked as a next leader, then you ask your current leader to send you to a different institute for a couple of years so that I will be trained and prepared to take over your leadership role. Actually, this founding leader, number one leader, must do that. But if they are not thinking about that, then you can kindly ask the leader to let you go for a certain period so that you can be equipped, that you can come back to the position to function well. So two things again, spend time together and be trained and prepared officially. I hope this answers to your question too.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think because you did study Korean pastors transitioning the power, I think there are a lot of applicable points that we could use because as I mentioned that a lot of 99% of Korean missionaries in the field, they never got training as a missionary. They just got MDiv
Right.
from seminary.
Right.
They know how to do church, but they don't know how to be a missionary. So
Right.
it is very difficult task when they realize, because the whole missionary aspect is for me to give a birth and then leave it and then move on. But they don't know how to do that yet because they have ownership. They're still young. So it is a good time. So what do you suggest? Because Cambodia did not have to go through that transition yet, or they are just beginning to. And if you are saying that the Moses and Joshua had to spend meaningful time together before the baton could be handed over, what are some practical stuff that they could do now? That not from the top down, from the Ul perspective, because we're looking from Kap and Ul. What can Ul do in the context of Kap and Ul that could ensure peaceful, productive, helpful transition?
Get the professional consultation from Dr. O. I'm curious about that, but here's my just instant thought. You can ask that missionary be your supervisor and ask them to mentor you. And in that mentoring session, you can, not the leadership training session, but more personal level, I said before, mentoring level, you can exchange your thoughts, your opinions, your deep heart thinking with that missionary as well. And true leadership is not motivating the followers under you. Real leadership is to move and change the person who's above you to work for your purpose. That's what I did actually. And he knows my mentor very well. I spent 26 years under him, but I was the executive pastor when he was the senior pastor. I did almost everything that I wanted to do in my young adult ministry using him, using senior pastor as my shield. And I used him as my shield and advocate sometimes so that he can speak on behalf of me to the elder session. And one time, as soon as I took over the young adult ministry with the 70 people, I asked the session to allow us to have the Sunday service at the main sanctuary. Main sanctuary capacity was 1,500 people, but 70 people cannot feel that it will give us the empty feeling. So if you're worried, then invest some money so that change the sound system so the sound will fill the room and also lighting system. And the estimation was about $200,000, which is, I don't know in Cambodian, but $200,000 in the beginning, but ended up cost us $700,000. But my senior pastor made it happen. One soul is more important than anything else. And if we could have 50 more young adults after changing the sound system and lighting system, and it is very successful. But by the end of that year, we became 250 attendance. By the time I left the church, we're attending members. I don't know, Dr. O heard about it. We were the largest young adult group in entire North America. We had one time we measured 1,050 attendance one Sunday. Young adult service, 230. So that was one of the examples that I used the person above me to influence other people to achieve my goal. How could I do that? The relationship with my mentor. I do whatever he asked me to do perfectly. And if I do like 10 times, then I can do one time favor. So a relationship, sort of business relationship too. It's all about developing the relationship. Mentee can change the mentor to achieve the common goal. So you can very carefully ask the missionary to spend at least once a week, a pastor or missionary, can we have a lunch every Friday? So just then let him know that you're not his enemy. Every missionary has a fear. What if they take everything away from me? Once I give my leadership down to you, handed it down to the person, he acts very kindly and he acts as if he's my own son right now because I'm his boss. But what if he takes everything away from me? You know, like Dr. O mentioned, translated from my book that, you know, asking the retirement, when are you going to retire? It sounds like, when are you going to die? That comes out of their own fear as well. So in an ordinary time, develop the free and positive relationship with your leader, your supervisor, and let him know that you're not coveting anything from him and you're not his enemy, and soothe him down a little bit. Make him trust you. And it takes time. And sometimes it takes financial resources as well. We tend to receive a lot from our mentor, but we forget that they're human beings too. They are so happy we give them present. You know, I received much more than I gave mentor, but still, whenever I gave him something special, he feels greater happiness than I felt the happiness than I received something from him. Something that Dr. O did not know. I never paid a single penny for my PhD. It took me 7 years to finish my PhD. My tuition and even my other extra cost all covered my mentor. Because the salary that I received from the church could not cover my tuition. And Pastor Ken is my senior pastor. Every time when I had to pay my tuition to the school, he knows the date even. And sometimes he calls me into his office that he gave me envelope that this is not the 100% of the tuition. This is all I could give you. That's a lot, right? But when I became a professor of Christian University, which is now Portland Seminary, before it was George Fox Evangelical Seminary, I gave him entire first check to him. And he was so blessed. And his wife wasn't even in tears. Expected. But I told him that this is my first fruit as a professor. You sowed the seed in me and you watered me and you cultivated me. But this is what I remember from Professor Kang. He told me that you deserved it. You built that relationship with me. You came to me as a friend, but later I found that you came deep inside of my heart too. It's all about what you do as well as a mentee or as a follower. I'm not boasting about what I did, but I mean, I had to. I mean, because I liked him that much, and then I wanted to do. So I translated three of his books into English and published it at university. Even that he gave a translation fee.
Wow, thank you. I think to summarize in the context of Cambodia, I think what he's saying is that you as a client or there is a place that you need to play. There's a job that you need to do. There's a responsibility as a in connecting with COP so that it's mutual. It's give and take. If you never ever gave anything back to your leader because you expect just receive, then you've done yourself wrong because relationship is always give and take. So think through and see in my capacity what I can give back to my leader so that we could mutually get into that give and take relationship. You know, especially Korean people, they start give. They said, oh, no, you don't have to give anything, but don't listen to them. They would love to receive something in return. So I think that is very good, very, very good point. Now, we have about 10 more minutes. So is there any more question? You know, Noptola, you asked a very good question, but I'm going to respond. I'm going to have Kamai professor tomorrow, Viche, come in like Pastor John today and then respond to your question. But today, is there any more question from what you've just heard from him? We're gonna spend maybe 10 more minutes because then we're gonna take 15-minute break. Is there any question? Go ahead and unmute yourself and speak. Cambodians are like regular Asians. They don't really put on the
Korean students like this too.
Yeah.
So don't feel bad about it.
Any questions?
So that probably can answer that the second question. How can we be independent?
Right. Yeah.
You know,
go ahead.
by
Yeah. Go ahead.
become that equal relationship. Once you end up receiving only, then that will make you always dependent. But like Dr. O said, something, it doesn't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be huge thing, but anything significant and meaningful to them, then you set up a equal relationship. Then I don't like that Kap-ul relationship. I mean, Kap is always, you know, powerful people and U is always weak people. I mean, sometimes you become a Kap to them as well.
So I've been teaching that our goal is to become Donggap.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great term.
So
yes, I like that.
Donggap partnership in the context, because when we try to explain what's happening between Korean missionaries and Cambodian pastors, patron-client does not really explain it well. So because patron-client is the only socio-anthropological term that they have invented. The West, the white people.
Even that is very Western term and it sounds somewhat equal too, actually.
Right.
So Kabul is exactly what explains what we are right now in Asia. Yeah.
Right.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So I really think that, and these are the first generation Cambodian pastor. These are the best of the best of the seminary, because they're the first one to do their master program in English, and they'll be writing their thesis in English, and they could really bring up the issues that Cambodia has for the next generation. These people are eventually going to teach at Cambodia as a professors. And I pray that they could really bring this whole carpenter issue so that then they themselves learn how to become Donggap so that they could teach and coach other younger Cambodian pastors who really will be going through the same kind of relational crisis or problem or dynamics.
There's one other possible pitfall of becoming Donggap. When we try to be the same as the leader or the supervisor or the cop, sometimes we become very arrogant as well. That's wrong thing. Becoming Donggap doesn't mean that we become arrogant. We may be arrogant to them. No, that's wrong Donggap. How can we be biblical Donggap? Jesus calls us a friend. That doesn't mean that I can treat him as a friend. That's kindness, but that doesn't make us give up even respect or admiration toward them. We have to have the humble attitude, yet being treated as, it's just like this. That fighting church situation, 장로님 and 집사님 said, you're a servant. You're called to be servant. You're to serve me. And they're out of angry. So one time I was praying, and then I had another mentor. 고승희 목사님 was my mentor back then. And I asked him, I'm almost very tiring and very exhausted whenever I receive that kind of treatment. And then, hey, go then tell them back that I am your servant, but you're not my master. That was very, very interesting. Yeah, I'm here to serve you, but that doesn't mean that you're my master. My master is Lord Jesus Christ. So you became the same level with your mentor or teacher. That doesn't mean that he's now your servant.
That's a good point.
So we have to keep that mentality. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope I did my role today.
Yeah. Thank you. We want to give you 박수.
Actually, to you, everyone.
Hey, so what we're gonna do, guys? Thank you so much, Professor. I'll call you later and we talk. But we take a 15-minute break, so we'll regroup at our time 1:45 sharp. 1:45. Okay.
Hey, Dr. Before I let you go, can I invite you into my class too? This semester, I'm teaching spiritual formation and leadership.
Sure. I would love
Okay.
to. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Bye,
Deal.
guys.
Nice talking to you, everyone. God
Yeah.
bless you.
Bless you. See you.
Goodbye, Professor. God bless you.
Bye, Professor. God bless you, Professor.